Hi guys, it's Miss Sims. So a real quick change of plans. We're gonna have to move a little bit quicker throughout the rest of the year, content-wise, than what we've been doing so far. Part of that is just because we only have 30 minutes a day, whereas in class we had an hour a day. So we've lost about 4.5 weeks that way. And then also, whenever you guys have to return your Chromebooks, which is like the 26th, I believe, of May, if you've borrowed those, that is going to need to be a kind of cutoff date as well for grades. So we kind of lost like 2 weeks there as well. So we've lost some time, which is fine. You guys are not taking an EOG, so I'm not stressed, but I would like to still make sure that we cover a little bit further. So before I had mentioned that we were going to go through some of the specific battles of World War II, we're not going to do that anymore. So that's something that you should have covered in 7th grade, and there's a ton of documentaries on that. That kind of go through the war. So anyways, we're just going to kind of scoot on by, which I'm sorry, I know a lot of you guys really like World War II. I really like it as well. The Cold War is also super interesting. So anyways, what we talked about last time we did notes is we kind of ended the war. So we didn't mention this because I was going to cover it in the battle, so I'll go ahead and kind of let you know. So Germany is going to, so VE Day, so that's Victory in Europe. Germany is going to surrender whenever it kind of gets squished. So the Soviets are going to come from their side. Remember, that's like basically Russia. They're coming from their side. They come through Poland and they're pushing Germany on that side. And then Great Britain and the United States and Canada comes from the other side. So this is started with D-Day and the battles at Normandy. So that is where the Allied forces invade France, which has been occupied by Germany, and start moving towards Germany. So if you guys kind of think of the map, let me see, I'll actually pull it up. Map of Europe. I'll actually pull it up for you. Okay, some of these countries didn't exist then, but basically the ones that we need to do. All right. Sorry, my computer's a little bit slow, guys. Give it just a second, and then we'll zoom in. Try to find my little, go away. Okay. So this is really where we're looking at. Okay, so at the time, this right here was all a part of the Soviet Union. So now this is Russia. So just imagine that this is part of the Soviet Union. So basically, the Soviet Union started pushing Germany this way. Okay, so Germany's right here. So the Soviet Union is slowly making its way this way. Okay, this is where Normandy is. It's northern France. So this is where Great Britain, the United States, Canada, Australia, this is where they invade. Because remember, this top part of France has been occupied by the Germans for 3 or 4 years now. And so even though France is an ally, this part of France has been controlled by Germany since pretty much the beginning of the war. Okay, so the invasion happens here. It's a very tough invasion. This movie is, I think it's rated R just because it's very, very gory. But Saving Private Ryan, that is about the Battle of Normandy, D-Day. There's a lot of documentaries on it. That's a really fascinating, very complicated orchestration of battles. So anyways, so that is where the Allied forces, so France, Great Britain, the United States, Australia, Canada are kind of coming in here, and they're kind of going this way, and they're going to kind of go up through Belgium. Germany is going to push back in Belgium. That's called the Battle of the Bulge. But anyways, eventually they're defeated. So basically what's happening is we're coming from this side, Soviet Union's coming from this side, and Germany just gets squashed in the middle. You also have like Northern Africa, Italy. So basically, there is a group that kind of came through and pushed, an allied group that came through and pushed this way. And so essentially you've got forces pushing this way, forces pushing this way, forces pushing this way, and Germany just can't take it anymore. They just get squished in the middle, and Hitler's going to commit suicide. Germany surrenders. So that is what's going on there. And then over here in Japan, we have been doing a policy that was called island hopping, which is basically, there's a bunch of islands here. It's kind of hard to see. We just basically started down here in the Philippines, and just started taking back these places that had been occupied by Japan. And that was the plan. But Japan had made it known that they would fight to the last Japanese person, that they were not going to surrender. And this is around the time, like right now, FDR has died, and Truman finds out that the United States has just tested the atomic bomb. Okay. Usually I spend about 3 days talking about the atomic bomb because there's a lot of different like moral implications. People ask questions like, should we have used it? Was it a racial issue? Would we have used it on Germans because they are ethnically Anglo-Saxon? Were we only willing to use it on Japan because of that? Because there were a lot of casualties of civilians. So anyways, that island hopping issue was going on. The bomb becomes ready. Truman decides to use it. Truman did not know about the bomb previously, like before he became president. So he only knew about it, I don't know, a couple weeks, like maybe a month before it was decided to be used. And basically what they did is they outlined a handful of cities in Japan that they were going to hit, and they were just going to hit them one at a time until Japan surrendered. I think I remember a report said that they were estimating it would take 8 or 9 cities. It ended up taking 2, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then Japan is going to surrender. So that is going to be the J Day, which we talked about over here. Okay, so now we're kind of caught up. So now we need to look at what is going to happen in the United States after World War II. World War II completely changes our society as a whole, and we're going to talk about a lot of that. So, all right, so troops are going to come home, and there's going to be an adjustment period. Basically, these troops need jobs because remember those jobs, they had given them up to go and fight. Those factory jobs, a lot of them had given them up to go fight, and women and African Americans had filled them. So now they're encouraging women to stay at home to give those jobs back to white GIs. And a lot of women don't want to do that. We're going to talk about that in a second. And we're also going to see that a lot of African Americans don't want to give up those jobs because those are really good jobs that are a lot better than sharecropping. Also at the same time, this is when the GI Bill, so remember GI means government issue, and it's going to eventually become to mean like American soldiers. The GI Bill, and this is still around, basically is going to give loans for college, homes, start new businesses, unemployment benefits. Basically, it's going to help veterans restart their life in a very good way. So my grandfather used the GI Bill to start his business, and it's the business that my dad and my brother still run. So this is going to help a lot of families down the line. This is mostly for white soldiers. It's not going to be available for black soldiers. Okay. The GI Bill is still around today. And so if any of you guys have heard of that, that's what a lot of people use to pay for their college. So they'll serve in the military for 4 years, and then the government will pay for them to go to college for free. So that's very nice. But, you risk your life as a veteran, you should get to go to college for free. So anyways, all right, so thinking about women, I had already mentioned before that a lot of those women that were working those factory jobs that had supported the war effort are now encouraged to stay at home. So many of those women, they liked working. They liked having the freedom of getting out of the house. They liked feeling useful. They liked having some money to their name. Okay, we're going to see that divorce increases quite a bit during this time period. And part of the reason is a lot of people got married right before the war started, because there was this sense of impending death, and now that they have like gone off and faced death and they're alive, they're like, I don't want to be married to this person, and I don't feel like I need to stay married to this person. I just face the Japanese or the Germans, and I face death itself. So we're going to see that divorce is going to increase. Also, there's not a lot of support for veterans as far as like mental issues. So that's going to be like PTSD and stuff like that. That's not really it's a thing, but it's not a recognized thing. You're also going to see that women are going to want more independence. The way that society has relegated women to slightly higher than children, but not as independent as like men, that is going to get to start to be turned on its head, and we're going to see the feminist movement is really going to. It's not taking off. It's been around since the suffrage movement. At the beginning of the 1900s, but it's really going to start to look different now. So Betty Friedan, she writes this book. It's called The Feminine Mystique, and it's basically that it argues that women should have the choice to work, that if they want to work, they should have the ability to work. Okay, and we're going to see that a lot of families are going to move to the suburbs. So talking about the suburbs, these are areas outside of a city. Now that automobiles are a lot more accessible to people. So in the 1920s, 1930s, Henry Ford's car became a lot cheaper, so people could afford it. So now people feel like, okay, I can live a little bit further from the city and I can drive in. No big deal. Also, these GIs they've got access to loans to build homes. And so these are going to be called, a lot of these are going to be called Levitt towns. And these are homes that all pretty much look the same, and they were built very quickly. And so you're going to see some giant suburbs like this. These are all each houses. So that is kind of when that starts. And we're going to see with that, we're going to see this kind of singular culture. So this suburban culture is going to emerge, and we'll talk about that. All right. So also after the war, these veterans are going to come back, and they're going to have a bunch of children. And this is called the baby boom. So if you guys, the insult where the girl, I believe it was in New Zealand or Australia, goes, okay, boomer. It's talking about this generation that's being born right here. So baby boomers, their parents were World War II vets, okay, to give you kind of like an idea of where that's at. So to give you an idea, that is my parents' generation. So my parents are in their 60s, so it's that generation. This is going to be one of the first times that they start having like daycares, childcare, because these women are working, and so they're not staying at home with their kids. Toy sales are going to increase. This generation of veterans that are returning, they have more income to spend on things like toys. So we're going to see that toy sales are going to increase. There's going to be a ton of crowding in schools, just because before people, they did have big families, but now they're like on farms, but lots and lots of people are having big families, and a lot of children were born in a short amount of time whenever those veterans return. And so that's going to cause some issues. And then today, Social Security is an issue. So we're not going to get into that, but if you want to look into it, you can. Okay, so Truman, remember we said he becomes president because FDR dies, and so Truman is going to have this plan. So if you remember, FDR's plan was called the New Deal, and so this is playing off of that because remember, Truman and FDR, they ran on the same ticket, they're the same political party, so they're trying to like connect their ideas. So it's called the Fair Deal, and it's just basically this idea that we need to raise minimum wage, we need to make sure Social Security benefits are good, kind of continuing some of the stuff that FDR has done. And then we're going to see 1948, Executive Order 9981 is going to desegregate the military. So in World War II, the military was segregated. There were all black units and all white units. So like the Tuskegee Airmen, which we didn't have a chance to talk about. Sorry, we ran out of time. Those are not going to exist in the next war, which is going to be Korea, and then going into Vietnam. So from there on, you're going to have whites and blacks fighting together, and that's going to do a lot as far as racial reconciliation in that section of the population, like veterans, not in a lot of other places. But anyways. Okay, after FDR, we've got Dwight D. Eisenhower. Dwight Eisenhower was a general that organized the D-Day invasion. So he is a war hero, and that is kind of what they saw him run as. So this was him during the war. One of the things that he did was increase nuclear arms, moving towards a hydrogen bomb, which was even more powerful than the atomic bomb, the Federal Highway Act. So if you look on the interstate today on the side of the road, you'll see these signs that say Eisenhower Interstate Highway System. And basically what this does is it makes sure, I can't remember the exact amount, but it's for every so many miles, there has to be, I think it's like every 5 miles, there has to be a certain amount of straight stretch of interstate. So if planes needed to land, they could land on the interstate because there would be a straight enough stretch. And this is part of Eisenhower being this military mind. So he's thinking about those things. They're also going to extend the highway, the interstate. So Interstate 40 is a part of this. So it's extending it so if we needed to mobilize or get ready for war, we would be able to do that very quickly because we already have these things in place. Okay, so we get to enjoy the interstate system, and it just makes it easier for us to go to the beach or go to the mountains or to go wherever. But it's the purpose of it is so if we needed to mobilize for war, we could do that easily because it's already in place. Okay, so it was wanted for defense. All right, at the same time in the Soviet Union, they launched the first satellite that is called Sputnik. So it orbits the Earth, and it's a really big deal. So people feel like, okay, the United States is falling behind in this like space technology. So there's kind of going to be like two different races going at this time. There's going to be a competition between the United States and the Soviet Union and a couple of other countries, but the United States and the Soviet Union are the big two, dealing with weapons. So we got the hydrogen bomb first, so we feel like we're winning that. And then also kind of the space program. They got the satellite first, so it feels like they're winning that. Okay, and what you need to understand is this competition between the Soviet Union and the United States. This is what's going to lead to the Cold War. And basically the Cold War is going to start about 2 seconds after World War II ends. Okay, so we were allies with the Soviet Union. So the United States, Soviet Union, and Great Britain were the big three. So we were allies with them, but only because we had a common enemy of Nazi Germany. Well, Nazi Germany doesn't exist anymore. They've been destroyed. So now instead of us being allies, we're going to become competitors. Okay, it happens pretty quickly. Okay, so we'll get into that. All right. At the end of World War I, if you remember, Woodrow Wilson proposed a League of Nations, a group of friends, and the United States said, no, we don't want to be a part of that. The rest of the world did it, but it wasn't super successful. Well, we're going to try again. So this time we're going to call it the United Nations. And it's basically going to do the same things, but just on a bigger scale. So the General Assembly is, I believe it's 15 countries that are kind of the inner circle. So this is all of the allies from World War II. So Great Britain, eventually, so it starts off as the Soviet Union. Like today, it's Russia, France, United States, China. That might be it. So those 5 countries get to be what we call, they have veto power. So they are permanent members of this inner group called the Security Council, okay? And then the other 10 members, I think it's 10 other members, they rotate in every 3 years. So this is like the inner group that makes most of the decisions. And then you've got, I've got it right here. I didn't have to remember it. I'm so proud of myself for remembering it. So that's the Security Council. And then you've got the General Assembly, which is all of the nations together, and sometimes they make the decisions. We are still a part of this today. Different people argue about how effective this is. It is definitely way more effective than the League of Nations was after World War One. But countries tend to say, like, whenever they want the security, like whenever the Security Council or the United Nations are saying something that they want, they tend to support it. But whenever they tell them something that they don't like, they just kind of ignore it. So the United States does that as well. So anyways, this is something that is still around. It's going to be really helpful for dealing with things like world famine and genocide. So anyways, those kind of things. Okay. Last thing, as a result of the war, whenever there's like a big crisis like a war, everybody focuses all of their efforts on trying to come up with a solution. So this should sound familiar. Like right now, we've got a huge crisis with a global pandemic. And what is the whole world, all of the scientists in the world, trying to figure out? They're all looking for a vaccine. And they're all putting their effort towards it instead of like trying to see who can make the most money or the most profit. There's a desperate need. And so we have to get this. That is the same mindset during a war, okay? So TV is going to improve, nuclear energy is going to improve, computers are going to improve, satellites, medical advancements like a polio vaccine, all of these things either happen during the war or right after the war as a result of this kind of all of the scientists coming together working towards like a singular goal. Okay, so this is one of the first computers. This is one computer. It took up an entire room. So your calculator for Miss Albane's class can probably compute more than that computer could then. The technology has changed quite a lot. Okay. This is nuclear energy. So the same concept for like nuclear weapons, like creating that energy that's for like a bomb. You can create that energy and harness it and use it for like electricity and things like that. And so this is going to be seen as a really positive thing because you can use it instead of coal. Coal is very dirty, and it's a positive thing. Little do we know that nuclear energy at times is going to be unstable, and so there's going to be like meltdowns like Fukushima that happened in Japan after a tsunami that was probably 10 years ago. Back in, I believe it was the 80s, you got Chernobyl it was either Russia or Ukraine. My brain's going blank now. But major radiation poisoning, major issues. So today people feel different ways. Like some people think that nuclear energy is a good thing because it's cleaner than coal. It's cheaper. That's what they like. But a lot of people are very nervous about it just because some of the accidents that have happened after this. So anyways, that is where we're at. All right, we'll pick up with the Cold War next time that we take notes. All right. Sorry, my computer's super slow. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Last thing, polio vaccine. That was a really big deal. Remember, polio was what killed, affected FDR and cut his life short. But it also affected a lot of people around the world. It killed a lot of people, but it also like caused a lot of people to have a lot of muscle weakness, and so for them to be either in wheelchairs or have to be in braces. So this was a huge. The polio vaccine was a huge thing. So anyways, that was the last one that I need to talk about. Okay,